Hey everyone, welcome to this video. One of you guys asked me how you make really big tattoo stencils, and when I talk about big stencils I mean ones that are going to take more than one standard sheet of thermal paper. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this. The obvious way to do it, which is not the way I do it, but the obvious way would be to, let's say you're tasked to tattoo this really simple skull, okay? And someone's have come in and they want it on the back and they say it needs to be 32 centimeters high, okay? So the obvious thing to do would be to print this out, put the dimensions into the computer on Photoshop and print out 32 centimeters high, which would then in turn print 2 sheets of paper out, and then you'd piece them together with sellotape, okay? And that's your design. And then what you do from there is get your hex graph paper, put it underneath it, and start going over it all. And then you'd eventually have your stencil the right size. This can take a long time to do. I'm going to show you a much easier way to do it. And it's also got its pitfalls as well doing it that way, because let's say, I mean this is a really simple design which is just for demonstration purposes of this video, but let's say you had a really big complex design like a big portrait or like an animal or something like that with all fur and detail and this and that. It would literally take, well, if I were doing it, it'd take me hours and hours to stencil like a realism stencil out this size. For me that's just not practical doing that, so I'm going to show you a much easier way to do it. So let's get rid of this for a second. This is the goal, you know, this is the size that we want it. But I printed this out on a piece of paper this size. And what I do is, I stencil out the stencil on like a smaller size, and then I scale it up on the computer and then print it out on thermal paper. So I've got my design here, which is obviously a fraction of the size of what the final design is going to be. And then under here, I've just got my hex graph paper. If you want to know how to do stencils with hex graph paper and the difference between thermal and hex graph paper, I'll put the link up, click on the link, and you can watch that after you've watched this video if you want. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly speed up the video now and stencil this out really quickly for you. So you can see under there, that's hex graph paper. So let's just get down to this. I'll just zoom in for you a little bit. Okay, so I've just quickly gone around that and then I'm just going to check it underneath. Just remove that from there, put that to the side. Okay, so there's my stencil that I've made. So obviously this isn't as big as this. So what we need to do now is actually scan this onto the computer and enlarge it. So we're going to go over to the computer to do that. Okay, so we're at the printer now, so all I'm going to do is put this down and scan in our stencil. Put that in there. Remember, stencil's facing down. Line that up. Put that down. I'm going to click scan and send that to the computer. And I'm going to scan that as a JPEG. That's all done. I don't want to add another item, so I'll finish that. And that would have sent that to my computer over the way here. Okay guys, so the scan has gone to my computer. There it is, scan. I'm just going to rename that, just so we don't get confused what we've got. So that I'm just going to name it Skull Stencil. And then I'm going to open this. So here's the stencil which we've just made and we've scanned into the computer. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is crop it. So I'm going to select the crop tool there and then just drag it. So all I've got on my screen is the stencil and no side bits, and I'm going to explain why I do that in a second. There we go, that's cropped down. Okay, so now I know the size that I want this. I need it to be 32 centimeters from very top to bottom. Now the reason I've cropped it is because, let's say I've got excess space here, and then I resize this to 32 centimeters, then it's going to size all that from the very top point to the very bottom point 32 centimeters, and then obviously your image is not going to be 32 centimeters because it's included all the extra bits. So if you crop it right to the very edges of your image, then you know you're going to get the size that you put in. So there's two ways that we can resize this. You can either resize it just straight on the print screen. This Photoshop I'm using is CS5. So you can go to File, Print, make sure you select the printer that you're going to print out your stencil on. In this case it's the Panasonic dot matrix, and then I can actually scale this up to a height of 32 centimeters. And then I can obviously mess around with it. I can just go back into there so it's not pixelated anymore. Right, so this image now is 32 centimeters. Obviously you can see it's not going to fit on one sheet of paper, so what I do, I'm going to mess about with the image to use as less sheets as I can. So if I flip the image to landscape and then move it down, then I'll take that. Then what I can do is I can print this out like this, click on print, and then once I've printed this sheet of paper out, then I can move the image up and then print out again on another sheet of paper and put those pieces of paper together. So that's one way of doing it. Or I can actually size this image in Photoshop, and it's the exact same result. So you go to image, image size, and then you can actually type in what size you want it. So in this case I'm going to put 32 centimeters, and then if I go to print, it's already sized it for me at 32 centimeters. So what I'm going to do now is what I did before. I'm just going to drag this to the bottom so it actually fits on the paper, the top half of it, and that's about right. And then I'm going to go to my to my dot matrix, and I'm going to print out the top half of this image. So this is my thermal paper. I'm just going to remove the onion sheet. I'm going to put that in my dot matrix printer. So that's all set, so I'm good to go. So I'm just going to print out this first sheet. So the paper's all loaded into the dot matrix, so we're just going to click print, and then we'll get this message saying the image is larger than the paper's printable area, clipping will occur. And we already know this because we know obviously this is going to fit on 2 sheets of paper, so we're just going to click proceed, and then our stencil will start printing. There it is, that's the first part of our stencil printed. So what we need to do now is print out the next one. So all we're going to do is go back to File, onto Print, and that's what we've printed out before. So I'm just going to make a mental note and just look at roughly where this has been cut off. So it's like around the bottom of the jawline there. So all I'm going to do is move this stencil up now. I'm going to create a little bit of overlap. And it's probably about there. I've reloaded some more thermal paper into the printer. So what's left to do is print it again. So we'll click print. And yep, some cropping may occur, that's fine, we know that. And we're going to click proceed and print out the bottom half of the stencil. And there's the bottom half. Okay guys, so we're back again. We've got our 2 sheets of thermal paper with our stencil printed on it. We've got our original image which we've stenciled, and the original size reference image which we were aiming for. Okay, so all that's left to do now is to piece these 2 sheets together with sellotape and cut them out. So this is the fun part, it's just like a jigsaw. I'm just going to remove this. Throw that away, we don't need that. Same again with this one. Just a little tip as well, if you are pulling on stencils, because, especially if you're using like a dot matrix printer, because the hammers have actually like made little impressions in the paper can be weak. So if you pull, say, like this, then the chances are this middle bit's going to rip because all this is weak. So what I do is just get it from the edge and tear it like that. Just a little tip there for you. Move that. And then on one of these sheets, I'm just going to trim the excess. See how there's a line missing there? Well, not missing, but it's just where it's printed out. See that there? I need to get rid of that. So I'm going to cut that across there. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight, which I'll show you why in a minute. But as long as you cut right up to the stencil, it's fine. Let's get rid of that. Now I'm going to do the same on this one. I'm just going to trim the excess off right up to the stencil. And I'm doing this because if you don't trim right up to where the stencil is, when you piece it together, you'll get a gap when you stencil. You'll basically, wherever you've joined it, you'll get a little line missing on your stencil, which, I mean, for something like this tattoo, I mean, it won't be a problem, but if you've got something which is quite detailed, then obviously you need every single bit of detail on there, so it's best to trim them down. So what we're going to do now is just line all this up. We've got our sellotape at the ready. And we're just looking for all the lines to be running flush with each other. So that looks about right to me, so I'm just going to hold it there, get my sellotape. And I'm just going to start tacking it down. So there we have it guys, and then all I'm going to do is just cut around this, trim it right down like I would if we're going to actually lay it on someone and use it for a tattoo. Obviously I'm not tattooing this, it's just for the purpose of this video. But what I am going to show you is how to lay it properly as well and get it straight on someone's back. So as soon as that video is done, I'll stick the card up on the screen and you can watch that as well. So that'll be the next video with a follow-up to this. Because it's no good having a big stencil if you don't know how you're going to lay it. And, well, it's going to be wonky on someone's back or something like that. So I'll make a video on that and show you how to do that as well. All I'm doing here, I'm just trimming around it like I would. I mean, I probably would have spent a little bit more time doing this, you know, if it was being tattooed on an actual person, but this is just to basically show you how it's done, you know, so you get the idea. I know there's a few imperfections on this stencil, you know, if you want to be picky, there's a little, you know, little crossover thing here which I've done with a pen, but it's all fine, you know, like I say, it's just for the purpose of this video. So Here's the stencil done, sellotape together. You see on the other side, it's all flush, it's all ready to go. And personally, if I was to lay this stencil, what I'd do, I'd put some extra little slits in it just to make it bend on the skin more, because you don't want to be pressing it down and then bits lifting and where it's not laying on the skin properly. So personally, what I'd make the slit like here. I always try to make slits that don't cut into the design. I know it's not always possible, but whenever I can, I always try to strategically place the cuts. And that way, because if I were to cut, like, let's say straight through here like this, when I lay the stencil, you'll probably get like a gap in the stencil like that, which then you're going to have to sort of like work out, or maybe like join up with a Sharpie or something like that for your tattoo. So I personally think, it's only a personal preference, but I think it's always best to try and not put the cuts on the actual stencil where you can. Like I say, I know it's not always possible, but in this case it is. Cutting that. And there we have it, guys. So we was tasked to make a stencil 32 centimeters high, which we have done. Here's the original size, which it would have been, and we'll just check that just to show you. And there you go, it's absolutely bang on, same size as the original. And like I say, the time that we've saved doing this, like I say, we could have gone all around this and stenciled this out, but if this was a really detailed piece, again, it would have took hours and hours probably to do that. And instead what we've done is we've got this tiny little one here, we've stenciled it round and we're blowing it up, and we've got the exact same result. But actually even better, because if we were to lay this stencil on and it wasn't right for whatever reason, we could just take it off, and if the stencil were no good because it would bled out and everything because it's already been laid on the skin, we could literally just print another 2 sheets off, piece them together, and boom, we're good again. Now, if you'd spent hours and hours and hours on a stencil this size, doing it all out this size, and it went on the skin wrong, this will be the only copy you've got of it. So if it goes on wrong, then you're in a lot of trouble, because basically you're going to have to say to the client, look, this hasn't worked out, the stencil hasn't gone on right, this is the only stencil I've got, I'm going to have to spend another 2 hours now doing another stencil, which is just a massive waste of your time, waste of your client's time. So I think it's best to, like I say, do the stencil as small as you can get away with and then blow it up. So there you go, guys, that's how I make the big stencils for tattooing. If you do like this video, guys, please hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. If you have subscribed, hit that notification bell next to the subscribe button and you'll get instant updates every time we upload a video. Like I say, there will be a part 2 to this video coming up, so hit that notification bell, you'll stay up to date. And that's it for now, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.